Hello and welcome to the Metaverse Insider's interview series. My name is Josh, and today's episode we cover part one of our conversation with Leslie Shannon, the head of trend and innovation scouting for Nokia. In this interview, we discuss Nokia's role and trajectory within the metaverse space. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Leslie.
Thanks so much, Josh. It's a pleasure to be here.
To start off our conversation, could you please provide us with a brief introduction to what it is you do at Nokia and what it is that you look into within the metaverse side of things?
Yeah, sure. I'm located in Silicon Valley, and my title is Head of Trend and Innovation Scouting for Nokia. In a quick word about what Nokia does, we don't make phones anymore. We left that a while ago. And so our main function is business to business, the selling of the network equipment and the services needed to run the networks to phone companies and to large enterprises. Given that, my role is to look at new technologies that are emerging that have some kind of connectivity requirement, and then to take that information back, both to Nokia and to our customers, mostly the phone companies of the world, and saying to them, look, hey, here's this new stuff that's coming up, and it needs connectivity, and the connectivity needs that it has are this. And so we need to make sure that we're building networks that are actually going to be able to fulfill that need. And so as a result of that, I've actually been looking at augmented reality and virtual reality, and visual analytics and a lot of other things for the last 5, 6 years. So when the concept of the metaverse really, took off, um, I'm like, oh, I've already been working in that for like quite a while now. So, oh, very interesting.
It's great to hear that you're taking on aspects within almost all sides of improving infrastructure, all the way from hardware to experience.
Absolutely. It's full realization depends on multiple players, multiple technologies, all coming together and working together. The same way, there's no one company that provides the internet. There's no one company or no single service that provides the metaverse. But it's really important to understand all of the different elements of it, so that we can make sure that we string it together properly. And as I said, fundamentally for us and our customers, we're building the kinds of networks that will actually be ready to support this in the future.
Fantastic. So, concerning moving into this new world of technology, what would you say, as a leader in innovation, are the most important technologies that we need for the metaverse to be realized?
I think, well, first of all, there are many aspects of the metaverse that are there today. If you're talking about being an avatar and walking around in a fully virtual digital world, or fully digital world, sorry, three-dimensional world, that's already there today. You can do that in Rec Room, you can do that in VR chat. Um, However, the truth of the matter is that nobody is going to spend their entire lives in that kind of an environment. Uh, you know, as somebody who's like, a mom knows, at some point you got to take the headset off, you got to shut the laptop, and you've got to like go make dinner. So, the physical world matters. So, so the and so there's a lot of really fascinating things that you can do in those three-dimensional digital worlds. But for me and for Nokia, the true promise of the metaverse lies much more in the union of the digital with the physical. So remaining in the physical world, but bringing the full power of the digital world into our space, rather than us abdicating the physical world and moving into a fully digital space. So 100% digital does have some uses and some benefits, but long term, it's that digital physical meld that will really change everything. And that for me and for Nokia is the true metaverse. So with that in mind, we are looking at the industrial metaverse and the enterprise metaverse as today's metaverse. The ones that are out there right now that people are doing in enterprises. And then longer term, though, the big show is going to be the consumer metaverse. And so the hardware and the software for almost everything except the consumer augmented reality head-mounted display metaverse, that's the only thing missing. We have enterprise headsets that you can wear to do a task. They're not it's like kind of like we're in the early days of mobile phones, kind of like 1993 mobile phone wise. The headsets are like the phones in that they're clunky and they're heavy, and you'll put them on to do a single task, but then you'll take them off again. So from that point of view, we've got we do have the fully digitized world. We do have the ability to put on an enterprise headset and be able to have an expert help me with what I do, or see manuals, or have other kinds of visually analytics oriented guidance to be able to complete my task in the enterprise. All that stuff is already there. It's the one thing that's really lacking is, as I said, that consumer headset, and the main areas that still need to come into play to get to for the realization of the consumer headset that has a kind of an eyeglasses form factor that people would actually wear is there's need to be improvements in optics, improvements in battery, and that's fine. Those are areas that we don't really have very much to do with. But the shift of the computation from the headset, off the headset, and into the network, and that's where we come into play, because now you need a really strong connection with very low latency between your glasses and wherever the computation comes in. And with the rise of generative AI, that actually makes it even more imperative to have really, quite unlimited computing resources, not on the glasses, but somewhere pretty close by in the network, because that's going to give us the power. I mean, this is actually going to be the thing that it opens up Pandora's box, to be able to speak into existence any kind of digital content that we can imagine, two-dimensional or three-dimensional, or speak into existence programming that we can imagine. That's the kind of stuff that generative AI is going to give us, and that only comes when we actually have a slim form factor headset linked to big computation in the network and connected with smart connectivity that understands, oh, this session actually is very important that we actually have low latency between these two, and so we're highly optimized, and delivering an amazing service where you actually have digital things in your physical world. That was a very long answer.
No problem at all. Any length answer works. It's very interesting that you have a greater emphasis on B2B currently, because there are many people that I've spoken to which are still trying to make that connection from B2C at the moment, which is understandable, people still trying to make money and sell products that they currently have. Yet, as we were saying, the infrastructure is so important for it to work. It's good to see that Nokia come from this perspective and make sure that everything is going to be in place before we start bringing it properly to consumers.
Yeah, exactly right. Because connectivity has a much stronger role in even today's metaverse than many people realize. Like, for example, right now, a lot of the experiences that are, metaverse experiences, they're running on Wi-Fi, and people really just, they kind of take Wi-Fi for granted. But Wi-Fi doesn't just magically appear out of nothing. It is connected to some kind of landline connection ultimately that carries you through back into the network. And there's, if you actually have poor connectivity, whether in the Wi-Fi leg or in that actual connection back to the full internet, that's some of the stuff that can actually give you give you poor latency in a VR headset and cause nausea. If there is too much of a delay in the rendering, um, um, which can be caused by a poor connection, then that's one of the things that causes nausea. So you turn your head, and then what you're looking at turns just 30 milliseconds later. That's too slow. We can't perceive that difference, but anything more than about 10 milliseconds, is what causes nausea. And there's other things too. There's things that, like, the way that you move within VR can be nausea inducing. But but like, I read an article once. It was like, it was a whole room full of people trying VR, and every single one of them got sick. I'm like, that room clearly had crappy Wi-Fi. I mean, that's the kind of thing. So, but because people just kind of, I don't know, people aren't used to thinking about the quality of Wi-Fi when it comes to something like that. They're not adequately saying, "Hey, the connection's a problem here." So in terms of consumer, it sounds a little counterintuitive, but how we make the consumer metaverse experience a really good one is actually by improving the quality of our Wi-Fi, which from the phone company point of view often means getting a better landline connection. So laying more fiber as opposed to copper, which just doesn't sound very metaversy at all, but that's actually the way that it goes. But then when we're talking about the mobility aspect of it, like when you would move, when you need something more than Wi-Fi, that's actually where where we're looking at enterprise and industrial metaverse examples today. Because if you have some kind of a feed, for example, if you have the feed coming off of a 360-degree camera, and it's going to a VR headset, and you need to have the freedom to look anywhere within that feed at any time. So you need to be sending the whole feed. That's too much for Wi-Fi. You do need 5G for that. And where you would need that kind of thing with, the immediate response and low latency, that would also call for 5G is in teleoperations. So, for example, if you've got a robot, industrial robot, that is handling big, heavy things or dangerous things like explosives. So you want the robot over there, and you want the human being running it over here. That's the kind of case where you would need Wi-Fi to connect those two, both to be able to have the visual so you can look anywhere and see what the robot is seeing, and also so every command that you send back to the robot is executed instantaneously. And that you can't guarantee with Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is best effort networks, wireless networks, and so, but 5G is it's 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 set up so that it's not best effort. You can actually create an excellent signal and maintain it. Um, and so, yeah, so that's a huge difference. So in cases of teleoperations, or if you need security, Wi-Fi as a bandwidth is pretty open, and people can kind of sneak and listen into what it is that you're doing. But 5G is not. So if you want to make sure that what you're doing is completely unhackable, you want to use 5G for that. Um, and so those are really the main kinds of use cases. Very large feed coming off of something like a camera, where you want total security, or if you need to have absolutely guaranteed low latency. Those three cases in the industrial setting are where you would need 5G.
Well, that's very insightful. It's actually quite a trending topic of discussion currently, with people saying that high performance cloud computing is necessary for the development of literally everything that you mentioned before.
Yes, and now when people are talking about high performance cloud computing, generally they're actually referring to the computing that is sitting in the cloud. And at all points here we're bound by physics, and the reality is that you cannot send electrons faster than the speed of light. And if you're talking about very low latency, as I said, like 10 millisecond kind of response times, that means that the computing that has come off of the headset and that is sitting somewhere in the network, it can't be far away. And depending on the latency that you need, it really needs to be actually pretty close. If you want to deal with something, under, routinely, reliably under 15, 10 milliseconds, the computing needs to be about, 15 kilometers away. It really can't be further than that. And so, but that's expensive to have lots of these data centers scattered everywhere. So that's actually part of the R&D that's going on right now. What are the use cases where you can take the processing off of the device and put it in the network? And how far away can it go? And that's going to be different from use case to use case. And then how do we build these networks at scale? One of the reasons why enterprise and industrial is so important right now is that lets us experiment. An enterprise or an industrial use case, generally it's a particular campus with a particular fixed footprint, and the server is on site, for security reasons. So getting that right and understanding whatever kinds of idiosyncrasies we have when we move the processing off of the end device and into the network, the the enterprise or the industrial setup is a microcosm, and the tiny little controlled experiment, if you will. So getting it right in those kinds of things are a dress rehearsal for the main show of enabling this kind of functionality in the large macro commercial networks for all consumers. Because make no mistake, it's going to be a heavy lift to be able to provide that kind of computing in the network. But the promise of what was going to be possible if we can build these devices is so gigantic that it's absolutely worth going for.
Absolutely. Well, I recently saw a stat, not sure how authentic it is, but it was something along the lines of the energy required to make the metaverse run as we intended it to. And it said something along the lines of the metaverse requiring more power than all the mobile phones on the planet combined.
And I know, and so or the power of like six suns. I mean, I, and I have to say that those kind of stats, they tend to refer more to the fully digital immersive world concept, where you've got instances with a million people in them, and I have to say um, that Matthew Ball's book, he really looked at that, and he looked at the difficulties of creating that compute, and I don't remember if he specifically addressed the question of power, but yeah, that's all true. And I have to say that when I came away from Matthew Ball's book, I don't think he intended this, but he actually convinced me of the impossibility of ever building a single instance with like 10 million people in it, and that actually was part of what pushed me more towards what is the Niantic, the John Hankey view of the metaverse, the Evan Spiegel Snapchat view of the metaverse, which is we are here in the physical world and we bring digital elements into that, whether that is information, whether that is seeming to put us in another location or bring elements from another location into our location, or whether that's bringing another person, their presence somehow into our world. That's why I think that is actually a better definition of the metaverse, because frankly, that is also a much more sustainable metaverse from a resource and an energy point of view.
I agree. So, could you please tell me more about the current projects that you've got going on, both enterprise and industrial?
Yeah, sure. It's well, we're really we're working it's all back-endy kinds of things. Where we're really focused right now is actually in the standards. Because every G, 2G, 3G, 4G, G stands for generation. That's it. So, we're in the fifth generation of mobile connectivity. And uh, each G, the specs for it are set about 10 years before it is actually, and then it takes 10 years for it to develop and actually reach market. So the specs for 5G were set right when Netflix and YouTube exploded, and there was a huge amount of streaming traffic that had been unexpected by anybody, and it's flooding the network. And so 5G was really built in response to that, which means that 5G was built to have a very large downlink, which means the pipe coming from the network to me is enormous. All that video traffic, yay. The uplink, however, the traffic going from me back into the network, much smaller, much smaller. That's a problem. Developers are already running into a problem with that right now, because what was not foreseen when we were dealing with all that Netflix traffic was user-generated content, or needing to scan the three-dimensional world that I'm in and send that back up into the cloud so that any kind of digital goods can be visually integrated with my digital reality. So the first thing we have to do is we have to actually address and make that uplink channel wider. And that we've already, we figured that out a while ago. So that's coming in 5G Advanced in 2027. But the next iteration is 6G. And I know it sounds kind of silly to be talking about that now, but honestly, we are one of the main companies, along with other companies like Qualcomm, who are working in the standards bodies to set the standards for 6G. And that means we are looking hard at the underpinnings of the metaverse to understand what aspects of it, where is this going to develop, what areas of the network are going to get pushed on, what are the things that need to change from today? And that's all back end stuff that you don't really see too much of. So we don't have like, hey, here's our flashy metaverse products. It's we're actually working on genuinely making the infrastructure able to work for the metaverse for everyone by getting deep into it and really doing deep PhD AI pondering about what the network needs to do in order to serve the next iteration of the metaverse. So yeah, so watch this space. There will be things coming out about what 6G will support. But the blending of the physical and the digital, and we also have an eye on human augmentation. So the augmentation of the human body with other kinds of AI that need connectivity. I don't know if we're going to get as far as brain implants with Neuralink or whatever, but we are very aware that anyway, that's an area that we're keeping an eye on as well, and considering the connectivity needed for that. What happens when you've actually got something that's a radio that is actually close to your human skin all the time? I mean, I'm wearing an Apple Watch here, so we're already doing this, but really exploring, let's make sure that this is, whatever it is we come up with is completely safe and all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of work that we're doing.
That's very interesting to hear. Fresh perspective, to say the least.
The thing is that, networks are such a gigantic investment, and you have to do them way ahead of time. So we really are genuinely thinking, 10 years out plus, and looking way over the horizon and then figuring out where we need to go and then plotting the path to go there. So, and that's really where our focus is. So you're not going to see like Nokia Metaverse headlines, but our hope is that as we progress more towards a day-to-day, everyday, unremarkable union of the digital and the physical, the connectivity layer is not the thing that keeps us from getting to where we want to go. That's our goal. So if you never hear about connectivity as an issue, we've won!
That's fantastic. So definitely pointing towards you guys being absolute facilitators for us all to work. That's very good news.
Yeah, and we're a little more invisible, a little more in the background than a lot of the other players, but oh, we are so focused. Yeah, we are there. We are there.
Yes, brilliant. Well, as people know, Nokia aren't producing phones anymore, as you said. It's awesome to see that you're still working on connectivity, just connecting people in a whole different way.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, and the thing is that, I mean, I've been with Nokia for 23 years, and I've always been on the network side. So it's like, hi, I work for Nokia. Oh, here's my phone. Can you fix it? No, 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 I don't know anything about phones. I'm the network. At what? Network? What? No, but yeah. So we've always done this, and now that's the headline. So, um, yeah, we're really pleased to be able to bring our expertise into this, and so because we're actually really excited about the metaverse and the possibilities for it.
Thank you, Leslie. Well, that's a wrap for part one of our conversation with Leslie Shannon, the head of trend and innovation scouting at Nokia. Be sure to stay tuned for weekly updates in the industry and content covering all things metaverse. Follow the Metaverse Insider on Twitter and LinkedIn, and visit metaverseinsider.tech for all our content. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.